We hear from students all the time that faculty can be petty. As a faculty member, I've seen it happen. These things happen. So don't select people that you've had challenges with. You have to know and understand the roles and responsibilities of the committee. That's the foundation. Then from there, when you're going out to select committee members, you're going to do that in tandem with your dissertation chair. When you have the right committee in place, you're doing it from a sense and a place of love and a sense of push you to be the best scholar you can be, versus trying to be a gatekeeper and some of those other things that we know that sometimes happen in doctoral programs. Outside of selecting your dissertation chair, you know what the biggest selection that you have to do that will propel you to finish quickly in the dissertation process? It's the selection of committee members. And on today's episode from ABD to PhD show, we're going to talk about how to select your dissertation committee members, how to work with your chair in order to do so, and how to create a committee that will get you through. So for today's episode, what we've titled that this will be the ultimate guide to picking the right dissertation committee. My name is Dr. Ramon Goings, and I'm founder of Done Dissertation and host of From ABD to PhD show. And our goal at Done Dissertation is to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend your dissertation in record time. Today's episode from ABD to PhD show is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Coaching Program. It's a coaching experience helping you, the doctoral student, get the systems, the processes, the feedback on your work, and just the clarity that you need to write your dissertation quickly. So if you're someone who needs that support, you want that mentorship, that one-on-one, that guiding, structure and support, make sure that you reach out to learn more about our Velocity Coaching Program. You can scan the QR code that is here on your screen, or you can go to www.velocitydissertation.com. So let's get into today's episode of the ultimate guide to picking the right dissertation committee. All right. So if you want to pick the right committee, here's the first step. You first need to understand the role and responsibilities of your dissertation committee. It's just very interesting that sometimes we have gone to the dissertation process and we don't always know what the rules of engagement are. This is really important, because what I've seen sometimes is that when we're thinking about the role and responsibility of our committee members, sometimes we see our committee members as almost de facto chairs, in a way that we would go to them to review all of our work like we would our chair, and take on a lot more of the load that's typically associated with the chair. Your committee, and this will vary by university and particular faculty members, so this is important to have those conversations. Each committee member approaches their role as committee differently. And there will be some committee members who are more than willing to look at a chapter before your chair is approved to give you some initial feedback. There will be others say, no, work through your chair first and then get it to us next. Your committee is there to help augment and support and round out the research project, but their goal is not to necessarily always guide you through every aspect of the process. Again, this will vary by faculty member, but that's not necessarily their role here. Their role is to be of support to you. But especially if you haven't talked to them about what the support you need from them individually, don't go into this with expectations for them to do all the things that your chair might do. Because honestly, when you're in this process, the role of the chair is very more hands-on than the committee. A lot of cases, what we see for a lot of our clients, the role of the committee is more so they come into play when you're getting ready for a proposal defense. So right before you collect your data, or before you collect your data, if your university doesn't do proposal defenses, and then at the very end when you get ready to defend. That's when they come into play. They'll review the whole document, the whole dissertation, the whole proposal, give you feedback and those things. But they may be very much hands-off in between those times, because that's not their role, is to be as hands-on. So I just want you to recognize and not go into the role into this relationship thinking that committee members will do that. However, if you're being proactive, and this is something that we teach in the book, 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation, if you're being proactive, you will actually reach out to your committee and have a conversation with them about how you can work with them. So again, some committee members are willing to be a little more hands-on. Like even I just had a student that reached out from my own university to be on the committee, and they had a question about their methodology chapter, and they said, can you just look at my methodology to give me some insight if I'm doing too much? I said, sure, I'd be happy to take a look. Typically, committee members might not do that before it's approved by the chair. So that's just something I thought I wanted to help the student out. It was something I was familiar with. I could take a quick look at the methods. So again, it's because they had a conversation with me. Had they not, I wouldn't have done it. So these are things that you really have to consider, and you have to be open and honest about it. But first things first is that you're going to have to recognize and understand what the roles and responsibilities of your committee are, and they're not always to be what you think it is. So have those conversations, and that's why in the book we talk about that. We have 2 chapters, and in particularly in chapter, if you have the book already, if you go to chapter 4, where we talk about their roles and we talk about the different types of committee members, and so you can learn more about that in this particular book, 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation. If you want access to the book, I will put up the code here so you can get access to it by using this. You can go to our website, thedonedissertation.com, or you can scan the QR code here to grab a signed copy of the book. So feel free to scan and pause this, scan it, go to the website, you can grab your copy. So with that said, when we start thinking about the roles and responsibilities, that's one step. However, if we are trying to get the right dissertation committee, the second step in our ultimate guide to picking the right dissertation committee is your understanding that you have to assess what you need in committee members. Assessing what you need in committee members is going to be critical to finishing the process. Again, you're asking committee to be on for particular reasons. This is something in our curriculum. We provide kind of templates for our students to understand how to communicate this to their committee members. Because when you're reaching out and soliciting committee members, part of your goal when you're asking to be on your committee should not just be the ask, but then to show how would you be valuable, or how would they be valuable to you on your committee. Without that, it can leave some faculty wondering, well, how do I don't see where I fit. So you have to be explicit and show them where you see their fit. And I recently had this happen with my own doctoral student. We were looking for a committee member, and they went external, and the external person was like, "Ooh, I don't necessarily see how I'm the fit per se." And then when I talked about it with them, we're like, "Yeah, I don't either." And my student was like, "I can't really put it together either." And I was like, "Oh, I have this other person who's external that will be phenomenal in this particular way." So I was like, "Oh, that's perfect." And so when they made their ask, they said, "Oh, Doc, your work relates to my work in these particular ways. You use a similar methodology, and you understand where my work is coming from theoretically." That's an easier ask. Now the person receiving it, the committee member, is like, "Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense." But it's going to require for you to do some reflection and assessing what do you need in committee members. And then again, having those conversations around expectations, because part of what you might say you might need, let's say you had a methodologist because you wanted someone who, let's say you're doing, I don't know, autoethnography for your dissertation, let's say for instance, and you have someone who's an autoethnography expert on your committee. You might reach out to them and say, "Hey, would you be willing to look at parts of my methods when I talk about autoethnography to make sure I'm getting it right?" That's a conversation because you've assessed what you needed. You wanted to make sure that you had what you needed on the methods around autoethnography. So when you ask the committee member, you say, "Here's the things I need from you. I need for you to review this section to make sure I'm going in the right direction." That's critical. These are things that will, I promise you, when you're thinking about having and picking the right dissertation committee, doing this step is something that's often forgotten. And because you didn't assess what you needed out of the committee, you come into it with expectations, and they have their own expectations, and y'all's expectations differ. And when there's differences in expectations, confusion happens. And when confusion happens, you do not finish. Just flat out, we see it all the time. So let's make sure that we assess what you need so that you can get it from the committee. Now, number 3, in terms of this ultimate guide to picking the right dissertation committee, what you're going to then do is select your committee members in tandem with your chair. Remember, select the committee in tandem with your dissertation chair. Literally, this is something that we spend a secret. One of the secrets in 14 Secrets, I'll read it to you because I think it's really important, and it gets at the same point, but it's going to be critical in order for you to finish. So this is actually in the book, Done Dissertation Secret number 8. It's in chapter 4. The dissertation secret that we share, number 8, is ask your advisor for suggestions about dissertation committee members. And if possible, stick to that list. Trust me, stick to the list. Come to them with suggestions, but stick to their list. They are literally telling you the ways they want you to finish your dissertation. And they know the right people to put in place. So make sure that you work in tandem with your chair. Because here's what's happening. There's nothing worse than you saying, "Hey, I want Dr. So-and-so on the committee." And I'll call him Dr. Taj, for instance. And this is a character I use in my new book called The Finish System. That's for dissertation chairing. And so let's say, for instance, you say, "I want Dr. Taj on my committee, and they're great for these reasons." And you go ask them to be on the committee. They say yes. Little did you know that they have a very oppositional stance to your dissertation chair in terms of how they mentor students. So what's going to happen is that you're going to get stuck in the middle of that. And I describe it in my new book, The Finish System. I call it the ping pong effect. Like it's almost like, or pickleball, right? If you play pickleball, you get all the new rave, right? And so you see the pickleball and you off the hit it with a paddle, it goes back to the other side. It's this ping pong back and forth, and you become the ball in that game. You don't want to be going back and forth. It's a very uncomfortable situation. And all you had to do to solve it was just work in tandem with your chair. That right there will save you a lot of misery with the dissertation process. But a lot of times you're either waiting on them to tell you what to do, or you're trying to be so ahead of things that you're trying to put this committee together and you didn't run through your chair. Run it through your chair. You might have a great chair who has the ability to work with various types of people. Like for me, I mostly don't have a lot of issues with other faculty. I can work with basically anybody. I get it. But there are some people that I will not work with for particular reasons. They have an oppositional stance to the methods that the student might be doing, and I know this, and so I'm like, nope, that might not be a good fit. Or we may have some clashes in terms of ideologies. I don't want that for you all to get stuck in that. So as the chair, that's my responsibility to guide you in the right direction on selecting a committee member. And so you want to work in tandem with your chair, not alone from, in tandem with your chair when you're selecting committee members. I promise you, it will save you a lot of headache and it will push you to finish your dissertation quicker. Now, when we're thinking about the ultimate guide to finishing and selecting the right dissertation committee, the last component of this that's going to be extremely important, and it's a bonus, is that I want to give you some red flags to watch out for when getting a dissertation committee member, because there are some red flags. There are. Some of those things to consider when we're thinking about what might be those red flags is thinking about, were there faculty that when you were a student in coursework that you all clashed on certain issues? Those might not be the best that might not be the best person to have on your committee. That's a red flag. So if you had issues with a faculty member, do not ask them to be on your committee, because who knows, if that issue has not been resolved, it will brew back up in mysterious ways in your process. Sometimes we've seen it. We hear from students all the time that faculty can be petty. As a faculty member, I've seen it happen. These things happen. So don't select people that you've had challenges with. Some faculty members who might be late with giving feedback and those things. You have to weigh that very seriously when you think about picking a committee member. It could be a red flag. It may not. You may be able to work within the scope of that, especially if your chair has a good relationship with that person. So maybe their email might get to them and get a response quicker than your email will. It happens. So other red flags to watch out for are, people who, like, let's say you're doing qualitative research as your particular, some approach related to qualitative research, but you're interested in having someone who has a quantitative background, but does not either have the will or even the skill to be able to put a qualitative paradigm hat on just for your study and see your project through a qualitative lens versus their quant lens. You don't want that person. That's a red flag. When someone's not able to kind of morph and work with students who are doing different types of methods because of their own stance about the validity of, in this case, quantitative research. And how that might show up is that, let's say you're writing let's say you did a thematic dissertation in terms of how you wrote your findings, right? They may ask you to, can you quantify how many participants said this particular thing in this theme? Like they start putting numbers when that's not necessary in qualitative research. We don't approach it from that way. Or saying that you need a large sample size because we want your findings to be generalizable. That right there is a red flag, because we all know if we're thinking about qualitative research, the whole goal of that paradigm is not for generalizability. It's more so for transferability. So again, when you start to see those ideology differences and someone's not able to kind of like morph and blend into different types of research paradigms, that's a red flag. Run from that immediately. It will save you a lot of time, a lot of frustration, and a lot of preparation, because you may run into that where you're going to have this. I see this a lot of times. In one discipline I see this in is in public health in particular. We have clients in our program who sometimes do qualitative dissertations in public health, but if you know public health, they're very quantitative or quantitatively oriented. And so I've seen those challenges happen. But it requires for us sometimes when we work with those clients is that, we just got to prepare you and your defenses for those types of quantitative oriented questions and being able to have the language in order to push back and explain why you're doing things from a qualitative paradigm. That's a skill and something that we teach our clients in our program, because we just know sometimes you're up against that when you are dealing with the dissertation committee. So Just to recap, the ultimate guide to picking the right dissertation committee. First things first, you have to know and understand the roles and responsibilities of the committee. That's the foundation. Then from there, when you're going out to select committee members, you're going to do that in tandem with your dissertation chair. Number three is that with that, this will actually go before, actually, reaching out and working in tandem with your chair. You're going to assess what you need out of the committee member so that when you make your ask, it's very specific. And then the bonus, which I talked about, some of those red flags, making sure that you all see the research, have similar ideology around the research, that they do the same work that you're doing. That's not necessary, but they have an ideology that's similar or willing to morph what they do and kind of put it aside their own thoughts about their work and how they view research into really being helpful in your project. You want people who are responsive in terms of giving feedback. The response time is different, so that's a conversation that needs to be had. And again, in the book 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation, I talk more about that. And then you want someone who does not have conflicts with your chair. This is why you're going to work in tandem with them, because you'll avoid all those things when you let your chair know who you're thinking about having on the committee. When you do these things and apply this ultimate guide to picking the right dissertation committee, you will have a phenomenal experience with your committee members, and it still will be challenging. You still will get pushed in certain directions. You may even get pushed in a different direction with your work. That stuff is okay, because when you have the right committee in place, they're doing it from a sense and a place of love and a sense of push you to be the best scholar you can be, versus trying to be a gatekeeper and some of those other things that we know that sometimes happen in doctoral programs. So that's going to be extremely important for you all to do these things. And what I want you to do for me real quick before we wrap up today's episode is I want you to share a link with your faculty members. We have a book that I just wrote that's getting ready to come out, and it will be out February 1st, 2025. And it's called The Finish System, Dissertation Chair's Guide to Supporting Doctoral Students from Start to Finish. A lot of things we talked about with selecting the committee members, we talk more about in the book for faculty in order to support them when they're chairing you. So you could do me an extreme favor, because we have a large community of students. I would love for you all, if you can scan this QR code, get the link, and send this to your chair for them to grab a copy of the book, because I think with you implementing the strategies that we're sharing on this episode and from our content, and even in our book, 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation, the Finish System is a complement to this from the dissertation chair's perspective. And when you bring these both together, you will have a great experience, and so will your chair. So if you could do me a favor and send this link out to your dissertation chair, even committee members, I think it'll be extremely important in order to support you to the finish line. And with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching this episode from ABD to PhD show. If you are someone who is looking to get the support that you need, don't wait. Get the help that you need. We have the Velocity Coaching Program that is here to support you, to help you get through the dissertation process quickly. So to learn more about the program, you can scan the QR code that's here on your screen and go to www.velocitydissertation.com. We want to see you all finish your dissertation this year, and there's no need that you can't when you have the right systems, processes, feedback, and support in place. And our Velocity program does just that. So make sure that you lock in with us, schedule a consultation so that you can see if the program is the right fit for you, and if you're a right fit for us in our program and in our community. And with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching today's episode. And until next time, I wish you all a done dissertation. Take care.